Hey guys, in the last video we talked about T cells in general, and now I'm going to get a little bit more specific about what one type of T cell does, your T helper cell. And I want to make it very clear that your T helper cells and T killer cells or cytotoxic T cells are two very distinct classes of cells. The only thing that kind of holds them in common is the fact that they both are maturing in the thymus. So I'm going to focus explicitly on helper T cells in this video and how they're used in your immune response. And to start the story here, let's say you were just infected with a virus or some kind of pathogen. And what will most likely happen is a dendritic cell will come along and recognize this virus as not being domestic to your body. It's some kind of foreign biomaterial. And so this dendritic cell will come by and it will gobble up this virus. And what it will do is inside it will make use of things called proteases. And proteases are things that will chop up proteins into oligotides or smaller peptides. And it will take the virus, it will use these proteases, which we can just think of as blenders essentially. And after it's blended up the virus's proteins, it will display these things on MHC2 complexes, MHC class 2 complexes. And here will be the peptide from the virus. So this will be the virus peptide. So perhaps part of the virus's capsid was taken and chopped up, and we have this particular sequence of amino acids. This viral peptide will now be displayed on the MHC2 complex of the dendritic cell, which is one of the cells of your immune system. And what this dendritic cell will then do is walk to the lymph node. And in the lymph node, we're going to have a high concentration of your helper T cells and B cells. And the helper T cells within your lymph node are going to use their CD4 receptor. So I'll draw something like this. This is a CD4 receptor. And they will use this CD4 receptor to bind onto the MHC2 complex of the major histocompatibility 2 complex. And they will also have another thing which is called their T cell receptor. And this is a variable region that has already been trained within the thymus, which is right here in your body, and your lymph nodes would be like these little blue things, or sorry, green things right here. So the variable region of your T cell receptor will latch onto the virus peptide and the MHC2 complex, along with the CD4 receptor on your helper T cell on your dendritic cell. And after this interaction happens, if the variable region of your T cell receptor has an affinity for the viral peptide, it will make it activated. So if the affinity is good, then the T helper cell will become activated, and the activated T helper cell will go find a B cell. And the B cell will have its own unique B cell receptor, and this is still occurring within your lymph node. The activated T helper cell will go and latch onto and bump into a bunch of B cells until it finds a B cell that has the right B cell receptor that has an affinity for the viral peptide, and it will encourage this B cell to become activated. And once it's activated, it will turn into a plasma cell. Plasma B cell, and its job is to crank out antibodies so that these antibodies can go find more of this virus. So let me draw this a little more clearly. These antibodies will go find more of your virus and latch onto it so that it is more easy for your immune system to get rid of the viral infection moving forward. In addition, once your T cell becomes activated, a very important thing that your immune system will do for your secondary immune response is start forming memory T cells, T helper cells. And the purpose for this is that if this same pathogen invades your body a year or two from now, or a decade from now, these memory T helper cells will remember this, and it will make scaling up your immune response faster and more effective. And this is part of how our vaccines work, especially with B cells. And the other thing with these activated B cells is that these B cells will also form memory B cells in addition to the plasma B cells. Memory B cells. So you will form memory B cells, memory T helper cells, and activated T helper cells or effector cells. So to get very specific here, and I'm sorry if this is a little confusing, but your activated T helper cells, these will be called your effector cells. They cause an effect to happen, and in this case the effect they're causing to happen is the activation of a B cell within your lymph node. And so this is the role that your helper T cells are playing in your immune system. And another key thing I want to hit home here is that helper T cells are commonly referred to as CD4 positive cells. So if you see CD4, that is referring to the CD4 receptor that only exists on your helper T cell. And the way I remember this is the number 4 is a upside down version of the letter H kind of in my head. So that helps me when I'm trying to memorize these little things. So CD4 means that you're dealing with a T helper cell whose job will be to get activated by a dendritic cell. These dendritic cells are also called antigen presenting cells, APCs, because their job is to patrol your fluids and find viruses to eat up. And once they've eaten up the viruses, they'll use their proteases to form antigens. They will present the antigen onto their surface so that your T helper cells can bind to them, and you can continue your immune response and scale it up appropriately. And so that's going to wrap things up for this introduction to helper T cells. I hope you guys find this useful, and thank you for watching.